Donald Trump is continuing to play damage control. From The Atlantic reporting that he called fallen soldiers losers and suckers, didn't understand World War I, and didn't understand why he had to honor fallen soldiers. Trump, we don't have this clip, but Trump did say that the United States military leadership is beholden to arms manufacturers in an attack on his own administration only days after reports that he had mocked fallen soldiers. Trump said leaders at the Pentagon probably weren't, quote, in love with me because, quote, they wanted to do nothing but fight wars so that all of those wonderful companies that make bombs and make the planes and make everything else stay happy. Interesting little analysis about endless wars from the president. Wow, you might think he was like an isolationist or something, or like didn't like foreign wars. Let's check in on some of his record. For the record, there have been more drone strikes under Donald Trump than Barack Obama. This is in the first 2 years of his presidency. There were 2,243 drone strikes in the first 2 years of Trump's presidency, compared with 1,878 in Obama's 8 years in office. And this is according to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, a UK-based think tank. Also, last year, $8 billion to Saudi Arabia. Speaking of weapons manufacturers, this was, again, an emergency funding bill that he rammed through over the heads of Congress, and said, yeah, we're doing smart bombs and new weapons to Saudi Arabia. Weeks after Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist, was killed or disappeared after leaving or never leaving a Saudi embassy. And also, again, in the middle of the war on Yemen and the Saudi-led war on Yemen, which, again, the House voted to retract from and get out of. I just want to read a couple things from this article from last year. Once again, just a reminder of where Trump stands on war. We're still in Afghanistan. How many? We're 20, going on 20 years. This September in Afghanistan's Helmand province, this is last year, a wedding party was turned into a massacre after a commando raid by Afghan forces operating with U.S. support. Over 40 people were killed. Just days earlier, a drone strike in the Nangarhar province blew up a gathering of pine nut farmers resting after a day's harvest. Also, it's not just in Afghanistan. Independent investigators have shown huge civilian death tolls, once again, from the ramped up air wars in Iraq and Syria. The numbers are far greater than publicly stated figures released by the Pentagon. And under Trump, the number of incidents in which U.S. military has denied or hidden civilian deaths seems to have increased. One last thing, Amnesty International investigation is looking into an incident in Somalia in March when 3 innocent men in Mogadishu were killed after being targeted by a U.S. drone strike. This is last year. So this guy says the Pentagon leaders just want to look out for Raytheon and Boeing and weapons manufacturers, GE, and yet he seems to also like them as well. Anna, what are your thoughts on this strategy to throw the Pentagon under the bus, even though he's at the helm of the Pentagon?
I think the strategy is going to work with his base. There's no question about that. It's the same type of fake populism that appeal to them, and they still think, even in this point in his first term, that Donald Trump is looking out for the best economic interests and, foreign policy interests of the American people. Obviously, based on all the details that you just explained, that couldn't be further from the truth. Remember, Donald Trump was the one who made the decision to drop the Moab, or the mother of all bombs, in Afghanistan. So the list goes on and on and on. And when it comes to sway or influence by private industry or weapons manufacturers, let me just remind you all that after we had, several mass shootings in the country, Donald Trump decided that he would announce some level of gun control. Now, of course, everything he says is usually empty and hollow. He didn't give any specifics, but he seemed to be much more receptive to gun control. And then the NRA hit him up and they were like, hey, listen, you don't remember that you're our whore? You don't remember that we paid you $3 million? That's how much we donated to you. So how about you shut up about gun control, because we control you. So for Donald Trump to claim that he's like some tough leader who's not swayed by corruption is laughable, to say the least. But look, this is information and evidence that I think logical, rational people will be receptive to.
Yeah.
His base, I can't say the same for them. They're going to believe whatever he says, even as he negatively impacts their pocketbooks, even as they're watching their own family members drop dead from COVID because of Donald Trump's lack of leadership.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's always been interesting to me to see the ways that Trump likes to co-opt lines that have been uttered by Bernie Sanders and from, progressives and people on the left who do want to see a wind down of Afghanistan, of the war in Afghanistan, and who are very, very critical of Obama's record because of the drone strikes. And yet we sort of give Trump this like blind pass. And because we're not looking at the details, he rescinded a 2016 executive order by Obama, which was an outgoing executive order, right? It was an outgoing policy to count the number of civilian deaths from drone strikes. It was like a little too late, buddy. But still, Trump was like, no, we don't need that. I don't want that,
Yeah.
And so once again, all of these reports have to be by these civilian review boards and international agencies, and we're still super in the dark. But so I find what's so annoying to me is like the Bannon idea, the Bannons of the world, where like, well, he just hates the globalists, and he just he's an isolationist, and we just have America first. BS, man. He is more in bed with the Saudis than any president. I mean, and again, this at a time, this was not a light vote for the House and the Senate to agree we need to not sell Saudi Arabia these weapons. We need to pull back from our support. When does that happen? It never happens.
Never happens. I mean, same with the bipartisan legislation regarding pulling out of our involvement in Yemen. Donald Trump vetoed that as well. I mean, Donald Trump, in all of his actions, has not only signed on to the foreign policies of previous administrations, he's expanded on it. And he pressured Congress, and it's shameful that Congress signed on to this, but he pressured Congress to increase the military budget in the latest, National Defense Authorization Act.
Right.
Why do you think he did that? Do you think he did that to give our soldiers better health care or to give our soldiers a significant pay increase? Of course not. That money goes to the weapons manufacturers. And after he secured that increase in the military budget, you want to know what the Trump administration proposed? Cutting $2 billion in health care for our troops and veterans. So that money is going to go to the private contractors, the weapons manufacturers, and the same, corporations that he's accusing others of being influenced by. No, He's being influenced by it. He loves it. And he doesn't care at all about the American people. He doesn't even care about his own base. But, again, this is all information that's easily verifiable. The question is, are people seeking it out? Are people receptive to it? And it's becoming increasingly frustrating to feel as though we live in like this post-truth world where the evidence doesn't matter. People just go based on what they feel despite being confronted with evidence.
Absolutely. It definitely, we are just living in a 1984 social experiment. I am really hoping that 2020 ends up with just Ashton Kutcher comes out and it's like, you got punked. And we're like, yay, oh, silly Donald Trump. Just anything, because we are living in the upside down.